And now we will get started with Google Maps and the features provided by this Google Maps collection of features by using the Geocoding API, which is one of those features offered by Google under that Google Maps collection. The Geocoding API can be used to translate latitude and longitude coordinates into a human-readable address, you could say. So an address that means something to users. And for that, we can use the reverse geocoding approach because that allows us to do exactly that, translate that into a human-readable address. And for that, you can, of course, also explore the official documentation to learn which kind of request you need to send to Google, because that is what you will need to do in the end. You will need to send an HTTP request, but that's, of course, also what we're going to do together. And for that, to create that location here, I will go back to the location input.dart file, and here, after picking that location, I also want to send this request and translate this location into such a human-readable address. And for this, we'll need to send an HTTP request. Now for that in turn, we'll need to install that HTTP package. So we should run flutter pub add HTTP to use that HTTP package about which you already learned in the previous course sections. With that installed, we can import it here into this location input Dart file, package HTTP, and then there HTTP Dart as HTTP, as we did it before in this course. And with that imported, down here, maybe before setting is getting location to false, we can create a new URL by using URI, and then either HTTPS again, as we did it before, or the parse method, which takes a full URL string to be precise, and then converts it into such a URI object. And that's the approach I will use here. And the URL to which we should send the request can be found here in the official documentation. If you take a look at the example down here, it's this URL which we want to use, but here we want to plug in our latitude and longitude, and also our API key, which will be used for authenticating that request and telling Google that we may make this request. So therefore here, as a first step, I will actually extract that data. I will get my latitude by accessing location data.latitude, and then the longitude by accessing location data.longitude. And then we can replace this part here, 40 something, in front of the comma, but without replacing the comma, with $sign and then lat. And then the -73 part here, in my case, with $sign LNG. And the comma between the two must stay there. Don't delete that accidentally. And then for API key, you can plug in your API key. So in my case, this key here, which, by the way, won't work anymore when you're viewing this, so you don't need to try using that. So with that, we have the URL to which the request should be sent. And with that URL setup here, we can next send the request by using the HTTP package and then the GET method, because it's a GET request that should be sent here to this URL. And if we await this, we will in the end get this response object. Now the shape of this response object can be seen in the official documentation here in this example section. There you see that what you get back will be this JSON data, where we have a results key which contains a list with a nested object, so to say, where we then have address components which contains another list, where we then have different items that identify the address. Now you can also see, if you scroll down, that in this object here, which is inside of that results list, we don't just have these address components, but if we scroll down, we also have this formatted address field, which contains the complete address, and that is what I'm looking for here. Therefore, to retrieve that, we have to decode this response, which we can do with the JSON object provided by Dart convert. And on JSON, as we did it before, we can call decode and pass our response body to it, like this. So this will give us our data, our response data. And then on this response data object, which has this shape here. So in Dart, it will be a map of this shape here with a nested list and another listed map inside of it. We can access our address by diving into res data, then there the results key, because that is the topmost key we have in this map, which then gives us a list. And there in this list, we want the first list element, since this will be this nested map here. So we use index 0 to access this first element. And then there, inside of this nested map, as mentioned, it is this formatted address key, which we want to access. So that is what we use here. And this should give us the human readable address. And now, of course, the goal is to save this address together with these coordinates in some object, which we can then later use, for example, on this place detail screen. And that's therefore what we'll do next.